Welcome to our final episode of our video series, which looks at the Hays Asia Overseas Returnees report. We hope you found our videos enlightening so far, and obviously we hope that they have been useful when it comes to you putting together your strategy in regards to recruiting overseas returnees. Of course, joined again by Torrens, Hays Singapore Regional Director, Tony Ye, Director for Grad Connection, and Yani Johan, Section Manager for Hays Singapore. So today, there's two parts that we will be covering, right? So the first part is what are the challenges for returnees when they return to their home country, and the challenges for employers when it comes to recruiting overseas returnees. So we'll start with the returnees and the challenges. Grant, can you tell us what are the challenges that they generally face?
Yeah, sure, and obviously Yani here would be best equipped to answer the question, so we'll obviously come to her at some point. But a large chunk of people or overseas returnees who took part in our overseas returnee survey, so 38% indicated that they were not completely satisfied with their new life back in their home country. And if you break it down, top three challenges that they all indicated that they were facing was unsuitable job opportunity, okay, unsuitable remuneration, and unfamiliarity with the local job conditions. So if you look at those three challenges, you could combine them all into one and term it mismatched expectations. Yeah. So maybe when overseas returnees are looking to come back to their home countries, they're not putting in the time or the effort that's required to make sure that they fully understand exactly what it is that they're getting themselves into. They don't fully understand what the local market conditions are like. They don't understand what the remuneration levels are like, and hence when they come back into their home country, they're a little bit unsatisfied. The other thing is, moving countries, whether it's home or not, but moving countries is quite a stressful exercise to do. You have to develop new social networks, you have to develop new workplace networks as well. One of the reasons why overseas returnees struggle is that when they come back into their home countries and join an organisation, they just feel a little bit isolated. They haven't yet developed that core network, that core peer group that many people need to help them overcome challenges.
Okay, and for Tony then, is there anything returnees can do to ensure their transition is easier?
Yeah, sure, definitely. I think obviously from personal experience as well, reverse culture shock is something that I experienced, after spending like over 15 years in overseas, in New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and that kind of stuff. And when I came back, it's like, when I relocated to Shanghai, I basically moved from Australia, which is like 20 million people, to a city with close to 30 million people. It's almost like you have to swing when you go through the crowd and that kind of thing, swimming by pushing people away and and go somewhere and that kind of situation. And obviously, when I left, when I was like teenagers as well, and then when I came back, I was already close to 30. So that's a lot of things are different, and a lot of things have developed since I left as well. So it's a lot of reverse culture shock, and I think one of the ways that how I sort of help myself as well is to obviously talk to friends and family. Before I started doing that before even I came back home as well. So chat to some of my friends, obviously who are working as well, who were working as well, and then having them to give me some of the insight of how it's like to live in Shanghai, and what's the work environment like as well. And obviously, if you've already landed a role before you came back home, you can start talking to some of your future colleagues as well. I think people these days they're quite friendly, they're quite open about different opinions and things like that. And I guess once you are back as well, you can obviously join the clubs for your own companies, and if there's sports club or there's like Friday after work drinks and that kind of thing as well. Just quickly sort of bring yourself up to speed in terms of what are what kind of topics that people like to talk about over a beer and that kind of things. That will always help. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Tony. And obviously we'll come to you, Yani. Right. So have any of what is said resonate with you, and obviously do you have anything to add?
Yeah. Absolutely. I guess with staying connected to your home market as you are living abroad, I guess in this day and time, the power of social media would allow you to do that fairly easily. So during my time away, I was still, I guess, connected in a way to my friends and family here, and are up to date as to, I guess, what my peer groups here are doing socially, but also getting myself up to date with how the market is doing here as well. So I guess the challenge initially for me coming home was more of a challenge to your mindset and I guess confidence. I guess the initial uncertainty that came with thinking whether or not the skills I've acquired abroad were transferable to my home market. So it was just navigating through that, I guess, psychological or mind challenge to mindset. But as soon as I was able to get myself up and running at work, and thankfully, my colleagues and I guess superiors here have been really supportive during that process, and it's made the transition fairly simple.
And it does seem like all three of you has sort of give is very similar answer, and the one word I can think of is doing your due diligence, right? Before you return to home country, make sure you find out, check your network, check your friends, your family, just find out everything you can. But last but not least, before we end the first part of this, any final advice for all the overseas returnees who are looking at this video right now, anything that you would say to them?
Well, I mean, it's about taking responsibility. I think if you're going back into an organisation in your home country and you think that there's going to be some program in place that's going to pick you up and automatically assimilate you into the business or assimilate you back into the culture, that'd be great, and some organisations do have that. But the reality is many of them don't, and there is a misconception there from a lot of employers that if you find an overseas returnee, it's like a gold dust, and they're going to be a plug and play. Great, there you go, there's a desk, you're going to solve all of our problems, and that's the misconception that exists. So overseas returnees need to understand that, and they need to take the responsibility to go and introduce themselves to people. As Tony said, take part in clubs, social clubs at work, form networks, ask people for lunch or ask people for coffees, and really take it upon yourself to embed yourself in that culture, in that organisation, as quickly as possible.
Right, thanks, Ron.
Yeah, sure. I think I completely agree. I think one of the things there is what Yani said as well. So I guess for myself, that says about my age, because back then social media wasn't that popular. It was starting off the social media and the whole thing when I came back. But nowadays you've got Instagram, you've got Facebook, and you've got all type of different social media platform where your friends and family are sharing all of the things that are happening back home. So it's actually very easy for you to stay connected. I guess in a way comparing with 15 years ago, it was easier to stay connected with what's happening back in your home countries and home market, and in a way. And then I think that obviously gives you a lot of advantage in terms of you already know what's going on, but I think it's obviously the actual the real exercise when you come back home is something that you just need to face. And I think it's just prepare yourself mentally, because I think if you can go to a strange country and be successful in some way, I'm sure you will be okay when you come back home, because it's somewhere that you've been living for many years. It's just a bit of a reverse culture shock, which I mentioned in the last sort of episode. But again, that's not something it's that difficult from my point of view. As long as you stay active, as long as you stay proactive in a way to meet friends and to build better relationship with your colleagues and things like that, you'll be fine.
Well, thanks all. And for entering the second part of this video, let's look at the challenges faced by organizations when it comes to recruitment of overseas returnees. So, Grant, can you elaborate on some of these challenges as uncovered in the report?
I think it's the main challenge for an organization is when they hire someone and they've got a budget for their role. And as we discussed in the previous video, there is a willingness there for most organizations to pay a premium, and so they'll go forth and do that. But one of the biggest challenges that they indicated that they find is that when the person comes back and joins their company, it doesn't take long for the dissatisfaction around the remuneration to come to light. And in fact, in the report there, 61% of employers stated that one of the biggest challenges was in fact mismatch in salary expectations that their employee or their new employee had raised. Again, that is all about organizations being a bit more transparent when they're interviewing overseas returnees about their organization. As Yani mentioned previously, their unique proposition. Talk a lot about career development. Now we know one of the reasons why overseas returnees come back to their home countries is for that career development. So if the remuneration can't be changed, or if that's a particular challenge, focus on other areas that you can offer overseas returnees. Okay, so have plenty of appraisals with them, plenty of assessments with them, and throughout that process, make sure that you continue to sell your organization, the career benefits, so that maybe that remuneration challenge becomes slightly less over time, and other factors take precedent.
Okay, and Tony, obviously you have sort of worked with many organizations around the world. Have you encountered similar identical identical similarities in what been reported?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's actually quite interesting that you mentioned transparency. That's something that a lot of the candidates mentioned to us over and over again, and it's something that initially they are having difficulty with, is that a lot of the organization put them in front of obviously potential candidates, and they want to be the best they can look in some way as well. So it's almost like, hey, the information that you see from the job description or on their website is not necessarily matching with the reality in a way. So nowadays, candidates are quite highly demanding for, hey, I want to know the truth. Don't give me the perfect image of yours. Let me know how exactly it is to work at an organization. What's my career path, and what's the actual market look like in a lot of ways. And I think that actually works really well for organizations to be more transparent in front of candidates as well, because I think people want to know the truth. I'm obviously not saying the company are lying about what they present to people, but obviously even when we go out to meetings, we dress up, right? That's in a way that we want to present us nicely and have a good image in front of clients and colleagues and partners. So in a way, I guess organizations, what they can do is to give them a clear sort of career path, let them know exactly this is how it is. Even though the expectation of salaries and remuneration will be lower, but this is the fact. But then you can also tell them, hey, but you could fast track if you deliver this and that, and if you do, implement your skill set in certain area. That's what we are wanting from you, and if you deliver that, you could be, at point A, point B in the near future.
And it's not always to do with salary. I mean, if you look at the report, Japan's biggest issues is the fact that, bizarrely, these candidates lack local market knowledge. They don't fully understand local market practices. And that's not surprising when you think about the fact that doing business in Japan is quite complex. And there's a lot of little nuances that you need to do when you're meeting clients, for instance, that don't exist in the Western world, or maybe are completely opposite to the Western world. So perhaps some Japanese employees, when they go over to work in other countries, maybe they forget some of those practices. And when they come back, employers are facing issues with having these people re-assimilate into the cultures that are required when doing business. Now, organizations can do their part to overcome those challenges. If you're bringing back, for instance, a Japanese worker who's been maybe in the UK, for instance, for many years, you could have some kind of training program to help them relearn or re-understand what is the kind of best practices required for that culture. Don't assume that they will just automatically remember. So some of these people may not have ever worked in their home country either. I mean, I worked only for a couple of years in Australia, and I've worked many more years outside of Australia. So it would not be a surprise to me if I went back to Australia to understand that maybe I'm a little bit disjointed in terms of understanding the work practices or the work culture there. But an employer can help overcome that by putting me through a couple of days training to help me relearn some of those things.
And so I guess what you're saying is that employees should also understand, sort of make sense of how disconnect is this particular overseas returnees, and how can we help people.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think Tony's answer, I think it resonates with the previous episode when you said it's not so much about that short-term remuneration benefit, but also looking at being transparent with these overseas returnees when it comes to sort of selling that long-term career growth.
I don't know, Yani, you've been back now for just a couple of weeks, but I don't know if you've seen any differences in the way that Singaporeans go about doing business, whether that be in meetings or over the phone conversations, that perhaps you had forgotten about just because of your time overseas.
Yeah, some subtleties that, again, as Grant says, as an employer, if you could obviously try to determine where are the gaps in those little subtleties that returning overseas can benefit from, maybe a little bit of refreshing or or training that could be valuable.
And from your perspective, Yani, I mean, everything was plain sailing, from when you literally indicated to your superiors in Canberra, that you wanted to relocate back to Singapore.
Yeah, incredibly so. So the whole relocation journey through Hays has been really smooth sailing. A lot of that has got to do with, I guess, Hays is a global business, so we're quite connected, ourselves globally between offices. And the Hays relocation policy is really supportive for I guess, employees that seek opportunities in a certain location, or in this instance, myself looking to relocate back. So everything from, I guess, having access to mobility information and support from the beginning, through to the ease of connectivity between offices and sharing of information, and I guess connecting stakeholders between two locations or in two locations, through to the, I guess, relocation support, and also onboarding has been really smooth sailing. So I guess I'm grateful that I'm working for a global business that's got all this, I guess, good policies in place to support international mobility.
And from an organisational point of view, one of the things that I was very cognizant of was the fact that many overseas returnees do struggle because the employer will bring them in thinking that they're a bit of a plug and play employee, will put them in the corner, there's a desk, and let them get on with it. So we made sure with Yani that we introduced her into the business before she actually officially joined us. So we invited her to an office-wide brunch or buffet that we had. That gave Yani a good opportunity to meet her colleagues in a less formal environment. So that on her first day when she came, everyone knew who she was already. So that took a little bit of the stress of the first day jitters away from Yani. I believe she's also been on a lunch with her team yesterday, I believe, just to reinforce that connection with her peers. We're just very much aware of the fact that we're going to treat Yani like she's a new employee, even though she's from within Hays and even though she is Singaporean. We're very mindful of the fact that we need to make sure that we're having regular catch-ups with her, that we're asking her to share her challenges with us, that some of our existing employees are perhaps going out on meetings with her, or giving her some advice along the way as to helping her overcome any challenges she might have.
Interesting. So it does seem like what it's saying here is it's not just sort of post-employment, but pre-employment wise. I think employers should take action to make sure that these are
exactly. Yeah, as I said before, a productive employee is a happy employee, an engaged employee. So if organisations can do their part to make the onboarding process as smooth as possible, and have a new joiner start on day one engaged, happy, feeling like they're part of the business, that's going to be good news for everyone.
Well, and
sorry, I think you guys definitely did a really good job in terms of, especially for the experience hire, because what we came across, a lot of organizations, they have actually what they call the induction week. But obviously it's more for the graduate recruitment, sort of, or graduate program, and they fresh out of uni and they need the introduction to the real work space, and that's why they have the induction week. But obviously for a lot of experience hire or internal transfer, because Yani already has working experience, so not many companies actually do very well in terms of induction for experienced employees, which I think maybe a lot of companies should start looking at doing that too, especially for returnees. Maybe local employers, it's easier for them to transit from one company to another company, but maybe for returnees specifically, if they are getting them back all the way from overseas, then maybe there's some of the things that organizations can look at doing and setting up for it.
Okay, well, and that's a wrap. Thanks everyone for obviously joining us again, and obviously thank you to you who are watching us over the past 3 weeks. And of course, make sure you download your copy of our report on our website, and get in touch with us with all your recruitment needs. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.